The Gwaltney Group.
The following is a sponsored program paid for by Robin Gwaltney. Gwaltney Group, RE/MAX Results. Welcome to Rochester Real Estate, featuring Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group RE/MAX Results and Andy Brownell. Here's Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk, 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good morning. Welcome to Saturday again. I'm Andy Brownell, and this is News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. And I am with, again, Robin Gwaltney Group RE/MAX Results. Hi, Robin.
Hi, Andy. How are you?
I'm doing well. Tongue-tied, but doing well.
Yeah, I was going to say, after all this time you forgot my name, I'm a little hurt.
I apologize.
I'm good.
Of course, we get together every week, and we talk about real estate in southeastern Minnesota and the Rochester area. And, oftentimes we talk about the value of going with an experienced realtor. And yes. Obviously I'm pointing my finger at you. And I know you've brought up that there have been studies done that show that people who, try to go alone, do it themselves.
Yeah, the average
it doesn't
person,
work. They end up
they might sell their house. Yeah, they might sell their house, but we could have gotten them 11% more. Right. And they're not paying us 11%. So, yeah. And we would have taken all the stress out of it for them. So it's not always a great decision.
But one aspect of this I hadn't thought about because of all the continuing education you do through your licensure and all your experience as well as I wouldn't have a clue as to how to make sure that I am meeting all the requirements of state laws.
Exactly. And that you're not putting yourself in a really bad situation. So I think good agents do make it look easy, right? And it's not easy. And there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes on. And I actually just had a person, I was super impressed by this person. They called me and said, Robin, we don't live in Rochester anymore. We own a property in Rochester that we've been renting out to a family, and the family has contacted us and wishes to buy it from us. And so they have asked us if they could go to their attorney and write up a purchase agreement and bring it to us. And they offered that our attorney could also help them. And they said, we don't want to do that. I said, well, the attorney is perfectly capable of doing that. And they said, no, we don't want to do that. We want you to be involved, and we're happy to pay you to be involved. And they said, you come highly recommended from our friends who have used you. And I said, well, that is a very nice compliment. So I got involved, and first thing I did, of course, was a market analysis. They'd already agreed on a price and everything. And the first thing I did was a market analysis, and they unfortunately had agreed to a price that was probably about 15 to 20,000 less than I would have recommended.
Oh, that's significant money.
So I said, well, do you want to ask them to bring up the offer because I'll show you the comps? And they said, no, because we're not paying you. They were only paying me to represent them, right? So they weren't paying a realtor to represent the buyers. So they felt like they were at a break even if we went at the price I recommended, right? So they said, they've been great renters. We're fine with it. We'll just go with it. I said, okay. And so then the attorney wrote up the offer and sent it over to me. And it said that the buyers had done they said, and this is just the way the house is. They can have it inspected if they wish, but we're not doing anything. They've been living in the house for X number of years. And they've always called us when there's been any issue to address, and we've addressed it. So it should be fine. I said, okay. So the attorney sent over the offer, and there was a line item in there that they would pay $2,500 for a radon mitigation because the radon level was above the standard and it couldn't be sold that way. And I said, well, it can be sold that way. And so I told them, no, you guys, I will counter back and say we won't pay the $2,500 because you told them you want them to take it just the way it is. And people do buy houses with radon levels above 4.0 and choose to mitigate themselves. There's no law against it. So that was not true. Anyway, they were so happy because I'd saved them that $2,500. And then they didn't have disclosures, which they absolutely have to have. So I got those to the buyers. I mean, there's just a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
So And they sent me the nicest email saying, we are so happy we got you involved. We're so happy we paid you the money. It made it worth it to us to remove the stress and know that we, didn't do anything that we hadn't agreed to do. So yeah, there's just a lot of things that, like I said, people don't see up front. Interestingly enough, I had a 48-hour meeting this week in Washington, D.C. And I was there with 12 other big team leaders from across the United States. Not all with RE/MAX, majority with RE/MAX. One guy that I found particularly interesting was from the Palisades in California, where they had terrible
fires. Yeah.
Terrible fires. Yeah. And he was telling us how all these people that he had sold houses to, he had sold in his time there as a realtor, he had sold 1,100 houses. Guess how many of them burnt down during this fire?
I'm really afraid to even ask.
Out of 1,100, 850 burnt.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that awful? He said, I have all these clients that are just devastated. I said, boy, when we think we have problems because a house isn't closing on time, and then you have all these clients that you've helped put them in their homes and they're all devastated at one time. I mean, it's overwhelming. And he was so passionate about it and so emotional about it. And he has been raising money and saving. Because a lot of people were underinsured, unfortunately. Oh. And yeah, so it's just interesting the things that realtors do that people don't see. And one of the things we talked about at this meeting is I get so sad when there are certain realtors who are just not professional and they make absurd comments, on social media, or worse yet, make the most ridiculous, unprofessional videos that have absolutely nothing to do with selling real estate and plaster them all over. And they think that's going to make them a hit overnight or a star. Okay, maybe people like your videos. They think they're cute. It doesn't necessarily equate to the fact that they're going to want to use you to buy their house. Now, I might be old-fashioned, but if I'm not in the business and I see that, that's probably going to make me not want to use that particular.
I agree.
I don't see it. And so there's one team leader that was at the meeting, and somebody called him out and said, you do a lot of, he does silly videos. And he said, well, what I've gained from it is name recognition. His are not offensive in any way. They're silly. But he goes, it seems to me you waste a lot of time doing those videos. Could you ever directly tie any sales? You've been doing this for 6 or 7 years now. He goes, maybe 2 or 3. He's like, think about the way you're spending your time. So, you do want to keep up with the times and you want to do the things that are current, but I want to, above all, preserve our profession as exactly that, a profession. So I expect my team to show up professionally, dress professionally, behave professionally, present themselves on social media professionally, because that's what our brand is. And that's what's super important to me.
And so much of it is word of mouth, right? You just mentioned the client who was recommended by a friend, and
right,
and
didn't even have to get a realtor involved.
Yeah, that maintaining that reputation. I agree with you. I think that it would cheapen your brand to use that sort of antic.
Thank you. I'm glad you said it, because we spent a lot of time talking about how people do it, how they run their teams, and clearly everybody's just a little bit different. But I walked away from that meeting feeling really good about what we have going on here at the Gwaltney Group, for sure. And they're all successful teams. Don't take me wrong. It's working for them, right? Whatever they're doing is working for them. But I feel like what we all talked about is the things that resonate most with people is they know when somebody's being authentic, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I think consistency is really important to people. You can't expect to have this kind of an experience with the Gwaltney Group one time, but then have no idea what it's going to be the next time. And it's one of those things where I think our service is very consistent. And it's super important that at the end of the transaction, our sellers and our buyers are not happy. I don't want them just to be happy. I want them to walk away from that table thrilled. That is our ultimate goal. Super important.
Awesome. So we already need to take a break. We'll do that, and we will return in just a moment with Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group, RE/MAX results. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
We'll be right back with Robin Gwaltney and Andy Brownell on Rochester Real Estate. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9. To Rochester Real Estate with Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group-RE Results and Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back. Saturday with Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group-RE Results, News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. Robin, I ran into a real estate piece of jargon, language, and maybe you could help define it. What do they mean when they refer to it as a stale listing?
Well, typically if it's been sitting there, like if I come into your house to list your house and I say, hey, Andy, according to the market, according to your price range, we should expect your house to be on the market between 30 and 45 days. Right now, the median is 43 days in your price point. Okay. So I want to be preparing you that things aren't flying off the market in necessarily 3 days or 7 days. Some are, but not all. And so I want to come in with data backing it up when I tell you what your expectations should be. Now, if all of a sudden your house is sitting on the market 3 times as long as it should have, it's a stale listing. Oh, I actually I'm in the process of listing a property that had been listed with another company in town for a very long time. Honestly, for 1 year. They did a 6-month contract. They were happy with their agent. They liked their agent, but they did a second 6-month contract. And after 1 year, they're like, this is a stale listing. Like, why hasn't my house sold? What is going on? So I had come highly recommended to them. I had never met them, but they called me and we met, and I walked around and I was who I am. I was very open and honest about what I thought. And truthfully, I got out of my car and the first thing I saw was this dilapidated retaining wall. And if you're out looking at a house and you get out of a car and there's this big, beautiful house, but the first thing you see is this rather large, and as we all know, that equates to rather expensive retaining wall that's tipping forward and blocks, how's that going to make you feel as a consumer?
A little bit worried how much that's going to cost me.
Exactly. And so, for whatever reason, and I'm not going to put the blame on anybody. I don't know if it was their idea not to do it, or if their agent didn't feel it was important or whatever. I said, I will take the listing if you first replace the retaining wall and then do this. And there was a few things, right? And then we're going to adjust the price accordingly as well. So we're going to, even after all that work, we're going to have to still come down a little bit. And then they're going to have a very sellable house. So hopefully it'll go from being a stale listing to a sold listing. That's my goal.
Well, I think when you point out that when your first impression is, oh goodness, that's going to cost a ton of money.
Well, you go in there with
you never get past that.
Right. You go in there with a whole different, okay, what else should I be looking for? Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I mean, this, you start to feel like, am I buying the money pit? And their house, believe me, this house is beautiful. And they have redone bathrooms and redone kitchen. And you walk in there and you're like, whoa, why hasn't this house sold? This is a really pretty house. So yeah, I'm feeling like we can convert that. But speaking of stale listings, do you know that currently in the U.S., there are nearly $700 billion with a B, dollars worth of homes on the market. It's a new record, actually. Okay. And it's a new record because of the prices of homes, not because of the number of homes. We're not talking about we're not talking about how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of houses are on the market. We're talking about what the value is, right? And unfortunately, close to half of that value, they figure that $330 billion of that is tied up in stale listings. So they're stale because buyers remain hesitant. There's inventory out there, so they don't feel like they have any pressure. They're just waiting and hoping that maybe the interest rates are going to go down. They're wondering what's going to happen to the economy. Is this a dumb time to buy? Let me answer, no, it's not a dumb time to buy. Anyway, so we talked about, going from a few years ago, not enough houses on the market. nationally, right?
Right.
Well, I can tell you there's still plenty of markets that are short of inventory, but definitely we are seeing for the first time in a long time that things are, in Rochester, we've seen very balanced market, right? But nationally, things are definitely swaying toward the side of buyers.
Huh.
Nothing. Yeah. So.
What's interesting about it, it's probably not a lack of demand, or I guess maybe it is a lack of immediate demand, but I bet there's pent-up demand out there, but people are just waiting on the sidelines.
Well, and it's sort of like, this is the way they look at it. The supply continues to increase. The homes are lingering on the market for just a little bit longer, and buyer demands remain tepid. There's definitely the need, right?
Yeah.
When I was at that meeting in Washington, D.C., I went around the table and said, listen to them all talk about their markets and what's going on in their markets. And I just, again, felt so fortunate to live where I live and do what I do because we have such a booming market and we have such a good position in our market. One of the things they said is, what do you do at your listing appointment that immediately sets you apart from everyone else? And I said, I'll start. I have a little canned speech that I give. And they said, okay. I said, well, everybody knows that RE/MAX is the best brand for real estate in the world. And that's not my opinion. That's a fact. It's the most nationally known real estate brand out there. Okay. And my broker owner, John Colopy, is the largest franchisee in the U.S. All right. He has 47, 48 offices. I don't know. It changes all the time with 1,500 plus real estate agents. So he's got a very big brokerage, largest in U.S. And his Rochester office is his number one most productive office. And I'm the number one agent in this office. So if you hire me, you work with the best of the best of the best of the best. But if you can do better, I wish you luck. I got claps. I loved it. But it's all true facts. It's all true facts. So
you have shared those numbers with us, yeah.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate. I actually had we had to bring a lot of data to this thing to talk about what our history has been. And I printed out, we can get a lot of stuff from our MLS. So I printed out numbers. And from the time I started selling real estate in 2000 through today, I have sold $865 or something $million.
Oh my God, that's astounding.
Worth of real estate. Yeah. So I said, well, I guess I can't retire until I sell $1 billion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've done it once or twice before. So when you talk about experience, I can bring you experience. I can bring you my expertise, and I love it. Another thing we had to say is, if you had to say you have one superpower, what would yours be? And I said, mine is definitely problem solving. And boy, that comes really in handy when it's time to help someone buy or sell a house. And sometimes it gets tricky. You got to sell and get those proceeds and buy on the same day. And sometimes they're not in the same town. Sometimes they're not even in the same state. But we have ways around all of that. And, I have all the connections. I was at a listing appointment yesterday. And when I got there, they said, what do you think about this wood floor? I said, ugh, guys, this is a $1.3 million house. This floor needs to be redone because they moved all their rugs. You know how wood floor fades from the sun. They said, do you have anybody? I'm like, well, let me get in my phone. I've got numbers. I called him up. He said, yep, I could be there today at 1:00 to give him a bid. Perfect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then a few weeks ago, this was my second time stopping back. But the first time they said, who do you know that could paint our garage? Who do you know that could do that garage floor finish on our floor? I gave them numbers. That work's already been done. They wanted me to come check it out. Looks great. So I'm a resource for a lot of different things that you might need getting your house ready for the market. I know people who are reliable, dependable, honest. They're going to treat you right, take care of you. So it's not just call me when it's time to put the sign in the yard. Call me when you're thinking about it so I can come meet you and talk about what you might need to do and want to do to get your house on the market in its tip-top condition so we can get you the best price in the fastest way.
Awesome. Okay, we need to take a quick break. We'll be back More with Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group-RE Max Results on News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
We'll be right back with Robin Gwaltney and Andy Brownell on Rochester Real Estate. This is News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96. To Rochester Real Estate with Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group-RE Max Results and Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
It's Saturday with Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group-RE Max Results here at News Talk 1340 KROC AM 96.9 FM. It's the beginning of the month. Robin, does that mean we have an update on what's happening in our market locally?
We definitely do. So, I just talked about how overall they're saying it's starting to be a buyer's market for the first time since like 2013. So in a while, right? It's the sellers have had the upper hand for quite some time. Well, last time we talked about a market report, I think that pending ratio was 52%. So pretty balanced, but leaning a little bit toward the sellers. This time the resulting pending ratio is 47.6% because we currently have 299 sales pending in the market overall, leaving 329 listings still for sale. So for the first time, it's tipping just a little bit in favor of the buyers. Not like it is in other places nationally, but we've seen this coming. Like we've seen people being able to, even in multiple offers, ask for an inspection. There might be 5 offers, but guess what? They all are putting their foot down and they want to do an inspection, that kind of thing. And,
it's still very balanced at 48.
It is. Oh, yeah, it is. It is. But it's the first time it's been under 50. So, right? I mean, for a while. So, yeah, it's good. One of the people that was in my meeting was from the Denver market, and she said that in her market, 61% of transactions are getting sellers paying buyers closing costs.
Oh, interesting.
And she asked if I knew that number off the top of my head in my market, and I didn't, so I had to go in and look. And ours is like 14%. So there's still, people that are getting closing costs paid by the sellers, but we're in a much better position for sure. All right. So anyway, taking a closer look, I can see that, surprise, surprise, the 300 to 400 price range has a large number of contracts pending, right? It's always a hot spot, hot price point. Days on the market is always something people care about. So let me take a look at this. It looks like the median time for the days on the market that have sold in the last 6 months has been 40 days.
Yep. That's fairly steady then.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. And the sold price, median sold price has been, let me say that again. It says active listings have been on the market for 40 days. So that's different than what sold. The active listings have been on the market for 40 days. The ones that have sold in the last 6 months were on the market for 17 days.
Oh, good.
And that was the median sold price of $327. Okay. And
a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah, and the houses between 300 and 400 have sold the quickest. That's no surprise. And I can tell you that since the recent days on market is less than the median, the days on market for these last 6 months is a positive indicator for demand. All right. It's always important to realize that the real estate markets do fluctuate with many factors, of course, including our interest rates, the economy, the seasonal changes, the things that we talk about every single week. So quickly, do I have a couple of minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So I will quickly tell you that right now we have 329 houses on the market. Of those houses, looks like about 160 are less than 500,000 and the rest are over 500,000. And just for fun, I will tell you that there are 21, 27, 37, 47, 47 over $1 million.
That still amazes me.
Yeah.
I guess we just have to get used to it. It's the new norm.
Yeah. We used to have that house up southwest that was owned by some people from Arab or United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia or somewhere. Remember that one that was up there, Jasmine Lane, for like 6 point something million? It went off the market. I don't know if they made any changes to the inside of the house. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful, but now it's back on the market for almost 2 million less. It's 4 point something now. Yeah, That's a big price drop.
I know, but there's still only a limited number of people who could even entertain buying that property.
Of course. Yeah, it's really expensive. But, I mean, at least now I remember showing it when it was 6 point something, and I said, well, I think it's a very, very beautiful place. And in Rochester, Minnesota, I would say it's worth 4 point something. So, anyway, who knows? They might get that sold.
So you would have priced it right away.
I would have priced it right out of the bat, right out of the gate. Yes, I would have. Well, so are we done?
Yeah, I think we better.
Okay, wrap it up. We'll talk more next week about that.
Okay, I look forward to it, Robin. So if somebody wants to get their home priced right, or just talk about the process.
Just take advantage of my expertise and my experience, because I promise you I can do a great job for you, and I would love to. And I have the best team, number one team in all of Southeast Minnesota. And again, that is not based on my opinion. That is based on the number of transactions and the volume sold. So we would love to help you, and you can reach out to me on my cell phone anytime. That number is 507-259-4926.
Thanks, Robin. Have a great weekend.
Same to you.
Okay. Talk to you next week. Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group RE/MAX results on News Talk 1340 KROC AM.